Welcome to Beverly Unitarian Church. My name is Merrick O'Connell, and I'm the worship associate this morning. And I'd like to just welcome everybody, thinking about all of you who might be enjoying being at home in your virtual space. And here we are again, gathered together in the best way that we can. So we welcome all people here, every color of the rainbow, from every place on earth. Whatever your past or present is like, we invite you to walk into the future with us. Here we celebrate a diversity of beliefs, striving always to make room for more. Like other Unitarian Universalist congregations, we affirm certain principles, which are on the back of our service usually. Anyways, our minister is the Reverend David Schwartz, and today we're fortunate to have Julia Jones as our speaker. So she'll have some music lined up for us, and we always want to give a special thanks to Pat Hoffman, who has been working so hard to put everything together and shouldered so many responsibilities. So welcome and thank you. So if you have any electronic devices, I'm not sure that we can hear them, but just in case, you might want to silence them. I'm just kidding. Anyways, welcome everybody.
Friends, I'd like to invite you to take a deep breath in with me and let it out. I offer you these words from Linda Barnes. Suspended between. Suspended between all that was and all that might be, we struggle to find this very moment, to live this very moment. Let us sit together for a moment and savor this moment. Let us relish this between time where past meets future. Let us harbor a faith that reminds us that right now, right here, is enough. In celebration of this moment, this right here, this right now, I'd like you to take another deep breath. As you do so, I'd like you to imagine letting go of whatever you need to let go of to be more present here in this sacred digital space. Let us sit, stand, walk, kneel, roll, or sway together. Let us harbor a faith that allows more fullness than fear could ever provide. Let us light our lights together and learn from one another how to be more whole. Let us prepare our hearts and minds for worship.
Will you join with me in our words for chalice lighting? May we be reminded here of our highest aspirations and inspired to bring our gifts of love and service to the altar of humanity. May we know once again that we are not isolated beings, but connected in mystery and miracle to the universe, to this community, and to each other. Friends, will you join me in the words of our covenant? Love is the spirit of this church, and service its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
Hi there. Arlo and I are back to tell a story today. Although today it's not a book written by a famous person. It's not even a book written by a not famous person. It's just a story about a friend of mine that I wanted to share. Her name is Laura. She's a wonderful friend who I actually met in Chicago, even though she lives in my home state of Maryland, which is kind of silly, but this is what happens at seminary. You meet the friends that you should have had to begin with. Like, yes. Arlo feels the same way. He's the friend we should have had to begin with. He started in South Carolina. Anyway, back to Laura. A few Tuesdays ago, my friend Laura went to Lancaster, Pennsylvania. Those of you who've lived in Pennsylvania know that I should have said PA. I'm sorry. Anyway, that day in Lancaster was chilly, but it was sunny. It was clear. Overall, a nice day for November. And she was a volunteer at a polling site. There were a few other volunteers from other organizations, and they had a lot of really amazing moments together. There were people voting for the first time in their 60s, in their 70s. There were also young people who had just turned 18, maybe like the day before, well, not the day before, but a few weeks before, and we're really excited. And we're calling their friends and reminding them, like, hey, you can do it now. You can vote. It's really important. Get down here. There was also a 95-year-old woman who told Laura that this is probably the last time that I'm going to vote. There was also a woman who spoke Spanish and couldn't read, but had studied up enough that she was ready to vote. There were two people there who were electioneering, which means that they were sort of making a last-ditch attempt to try to convince someone to vote in a particular way. And that's perfectly fine. There's a place where you can do that. And each party was represented. Unfortunately, they were not very well behaved, either one of them. Kind of antagonistic. There was, in addition to those two, however, a steady stream of voters all day long. And a lot of issues came up because it was a complicated year at the polls. There were several situations where things got a little heated, and Laura's amazing skills at de-escalating folks came in handy. She helped people take some steps back when that was the best direction to move in. She helped people make better choices. By the end of the day, after all that de-escalating and all that choice making, she was pretty tired and overwhelmed and feeling kind of alone in it all because she didn't know anybody. She was just done. She was done, and she was 2 hours from home. And then a group of Unitarian Universalists rolled up, including the president of the Unitarian Universalist Association, Susan Frederick Gray. Came right up to the polling site. They had music with speakers, and they had cookies, and they had joy. They had so much joy. They led people in doing the cha-cha slide and danced to everything from Cotton Eye Joe to K-pop. Suddenly, there was meaning again, not because anything was taken away. All the same people were there. All the same disagreements were there. All the same bad behaviors that had taken place were still there, still in the air, still lingering. But the power of joy and the power of our faith was also there. And more importantly, by joining in, it became louder for Laura than anything else. Want to say bye? She's asleep. Hello. I invite you now into a time of prayer and meditation with these words from Cricket Hall. In this time of waiting, Advent prayer. In this time of waiting, may we hold the world in our hearts. In this time of waiting, may we hold each other's hands. In this time of waiting, may we be thoughtful and introspective. In this time of waiting, may we delight in the darkness and all it teaches us. In this time of waiting, may we rekindle the fires of hope, love, joy, and peace within ourselves and our communities. In this time of waiting, may we become ready for the coming day. In this time of waiting, when the limitations of our control are so painfully obvious, let us join together to hold our sorrows and to magnify our blessings. For a joy shared is a joy increased, and a sorrow shared is diminished, if only for a short time. Please use this time to share your joys and sorrows in the chat, remembering that our service is public. You may also simply type I into the chat, as you would hold up 2 fingers in person to request a community candle for the quiet concerns of your heart. Today is the first Sunday of Advent. Today is the first Sunday of Advent, In the Christian tradition, it is the first of 4 Sundays leading up to Christmas Day, the celebration of the birth of the teacher Jesus. In practice, at least in the Episcopalian church of my childhood, Advent is a quiet time with its own collection of somber and contemplative hymns. In contrast to much of our culture, which really turns up everything in the weeks before Christmas, Advent suggests a turn inward, a period of waiting for possibility. Waiting. I don't know about you, but I've grown a little weary of waiting and turning inward. As a member of a family that's a little more medically vulnerable than some, we've had to be extra careful since COVID began, and my desire to spend more time waiting, which was admittedly not all that abundant to begin with, is well past exhaustion. But here we are, in the middle of yet another COVID surge, waiting. As someone who's already admitted to leaning impatient, I confess that I'm unsure about this whole interpretation of Advent, the time leading up to the birth of Jesus as a time of waiting. Years ago, I was in the late days of my pregnancy just before Christmas. And because there were 2 babies, I was really hugely pregnant. And some of it was waiting, for sure. But there was more to it than that. There was preparation. Preparation for the way our world would change after the children were born. Some of that was physical, setting up spaces and making logistical arrangements. Some of it was mental, thinking about the kind of family we wanted to build together. And some of it was emotional, getting ready to be available to our new children, to one another, and to experience all of the complexity of being new parents in our late 30s to twins. I'm sensing the same opportunity for all of us now in this sort of extended season of waiting and hoping and wondering what will come tomorrow. Despite our current limitations, there are ways to prepare. I've heard people talking about what we might build when we emerge from this crisis, and I've been talking about it. I imagine many of you have as well. What do we need to change to make a world we can live in with or after this disease? What other changes have we learned we desperately need to make? There are physical and structural changes, tasks for government, public officials, business leaders, and citizens. There are mental changes to make, ways of seeing and understanding our culture and one another that have long been assumed to be just the way things are. And there are emotional preparations to make. And that's what I want to talk about for the rest of our time together today. We have a lot of work to do as a society, as a culture, as a people in the days to come, and that work will require a great deal of emotional preparation. There are hard conversations to have, but today, I want us to remember that those aren't the only things to prepare for. Today, I want us to talk about another part of life that may require some preparation. I want to talk about joy. Why? As a minister in training, I want to tell you that joy is holy and sacred. On this, the Bible, the Quran, the teachings of the Buddha, and Mary Oliver agree. As a mom, a life coach, a former teacher, and as a human who thinks about things a little too much, I have to tell you that we need to remember to prepare for and experience joy so that we can get through some of the other stuff life throws at us, even if it throws it at us for a whole year. If you're not comfortable taking my word on that, I want you to think for a second about the songs and dances, the poetry and art, the moments of exquisite love that have survived historical oppression to be shared with us today, because they represent the joy of those who endured horrors. We need joy. The American Psychological Association tells us that joy is a feeling of extreme gladness, delight, or exaltation of the spirit, arising from a sense of well-being or satisfaction. This group goes on to tell us that there are two kinds of joy: passive, which you simply recognize as it's happening, and active, which you experience when sharing that exaltation with others. I find the words misleading because, frankly, in order to experience passive joy, one must first notice, and that is an active state. Being open to joy during a time of a global pandemic is a conscious choice. Dr. Rick Hanson, psychologist and author of Hardwiring Happiness, tells us that our brains are Velcro for negative experiences and Teflon for positive ones. This is how our animal brains have helped us to stay alive as a species. We require, according to Hanson, multiple positive experiences to outweigh the impact of the negative. The way I read this is that in order to stay afloat during times of great stress, we must actively seek joy. And that might sound like a lot of work. I could be suggesting you make lists of fun things to do. I could be suggesting that you recreate something joyful from the past. I could tell you to create a vision for the future that gives you hope. And don't get me wrong, those are all wonderful, but it's so much simpler than that. Buddhism teaches that joy is one of 7 factors or qualities of mind that prepare a practitioner for nirvana, for enlightenment. Buddhism also teaches that the quality of mind, joy, is already within us, available to us at all times. And it is this idea that guides my own personal preparation for joy. How then to awaken that quality? We must be present, here, in the present. We must, at least temporarily, release stories from the past that occupy us. We must, at least temporarily, put down our lists for tomorrow. We must inhale fully and let it all flow out. We must continue to inhale and exhale until we are no longer forcing that air, and then we must look around. It is in this state, this present awareness of now, that we can potentially allow the joy within us to be awoken by the simplest of things. As I wrote this, after doing all of that delicious breathing, I looked out the window to see a junco bird at the feeder. I hadn't seen one since we moved. His preposterous yellow beak and his accusing eyes made me smile. The very large squirrel I've noticed lately swished his tail at me from the trumpet vine before leaping into the bowl full of dried corn I'd left for him. This simple evidence of life in my backyard is joy to me when I am present. When I've prepared myself, and when I have not only prepared by becoming present, but I allow myself to stay and fully participate. That second bit can be tough for some of us. While I laugh a lot, I'm actually a very serious person and can sometimes hold back, stay on the edge of an experience out of some strange sense of duty or need to move things along. I need to not only prepare for joy by being present, but I need to let it in when the moment arises. I need to fully accept the invitation to joy. I try to say yes. Yes, I will walk with you. Yes, I will play a game. Yes, I will close my laptop. Yes, I will laugh when your shenanigans are really funny, even though I'd prefer more order. I will stay here in the now with you as long as I can to create, foster, and share joy, which is the next bit. I get present. I allow the joy in, and then I remember to tell people about those good things, those fun moments, those times of deep satisfaction. I tell people about how much I love my neurotic dog and how she, a small, fearful former stray, has begun to cuddle. I tell people that even though I miss my sister, my best friend, more than I can express, a few times a week, we still laugh on the phone and speak our own sister language that nobody else seems to understand. And it brings me such delicious joy. I prepare. I allow. I share. What of your joy? Are you preparing for it? In this time of Advent, this already there but not yet time of waiting, can you accept the timelessness as a beckoning to the present, to allow the simplest joys to fill your weary spirit and guide you toward the world that we have yet to build together? Breathe in with me one more time to center yourself, to take a break from the before now and the worry about the next now. Prepare your hearts and minds for joy. It is already yours. You need not earn it. You need not fix all of the world's problems before you allow it. Look for it. And when it beckons you, even with the lightest touch of a beautiful charcoal gray feather, I beg of you, for your sake and for all of our tomorrows, to let it in. And then, my dear friends, share it with one another. Share your joys, as trivial and temporary as they may seem to you. Let them ring out to the heavens like a song of our times, like a celebration of humanity, like a love letter to our best and dearest selves. Joy to the world in all of its brokenness and heartache. Joy to the world in all of its imperfection and struggle. Joy to the world and to each person on it, that we might be resilient, that we might be whole, that we might be authentically human. Joy to the world in this moment, now.
Hope
Morning has come indeed, my friends. Afternoon soon to follow. And while we wait for the circumstances in our larger world to change at the hands of others whose special skills and knowledge have prepared them for that work, may we apply our own gifts to making the waiting better, to preparing for the world to come. May we turn our own hearts towards the fullness of life even as we grieve. May we remember to open ourselves and to rejoice. Rejoice, rejoice. Let all of your heart have voice until we meet again.
Friends, will you join me in our words to extinguish the chalice? May we carry our shared light of community and love until we meet again. Go in peace, and amen.